The year is 2030, and the city felt like a tomb. Lachlan moved through the gray, sterile canyons of what was once a vibrant metropolis, feeling more like a ghost than a man. The shop fronts, once blazing with light and color, were now just dark, empty eyes staring into the street, their digital screens long since having flickered and died. Above him, the only sound was the incessant, low hum of surveillance drones, their lenses like 1,000 unblinking eyes. A constant, watchful lullaby that offered no comfort. This was the Australia created by the old parties, Labour, the Greens, and the Liberals. It was a sterile, controlled nation he no longer recognized, a place where the spirit of the country felt like it had been extinguished. A phantom scent of petrichor, the rich smell of soil after a cleansing rain, haunted his memory. He yearned for the vast, open sky of his family's farm, a brilliant blue canvas that stretched to an endless horizon. But that life was a memory, a dream. The farm, his heritage, was gone, swallowed whole by a faceless corporate agricultural fund, another casualty of progress. Now his world was confined to a sterile, concrete box, one of thousands stacked precariously upon each other, reaching for a sky he could barely see. It was a place of forced intimacy and profound isolation, where you could hear your neighbor's every sigh through the paper-thin walls, but never dare to speak a word to them for fear of being reported. A sudden, sharp commotion from the hallway shattered the silence. The clipped, authoritarian tones belonged to the regulators, their heavy boots echoing on the linoleum. They were at Mrs. Gable's door, apartment 7B. Her own smart speaker, a mandatory home device, had apparently reported a, quote, subversive conversation. It was a thought crime, an opinion deemed unacceptable by the system. Lachlan felt a familiar, cold knot of fear tighten in his stomach. His own trust score, a digital measure of his compliance and loyalty, was already dangerously low. One wrong word, one unapproved thought overheard by the ever-listening devices, could mean losing his job, his home, everything. The great Australian dream, the simple aspiration of owning a home and building a life, was now nothing more than a cruel joke. It had become a fairy tale told to children, a myth from a forgotten time. The solid brick houses his own grandfather had helped build, symbols of a life's hard work, were now just abstract assets, numbers in the digital portfolios of distant institutional investors, and the very politicians who had sold the dream away. The concept of a fair go, once the bedrock of the nation's identity, was now a dangerous relic. To even speak the words was an act of defiance, a phrase that would trigger an immediate, negative hit to your trust score. Despair had become his constant, unwelcome companion. He could taste it in the bland, gritty texture of the insect-based nutrient paste that passed for food, and he could feel it in the profound, echoing silence of the once boisterous pubs, now empty and sterile. Hope was a currency more scarce than clean water, but that night, returning to his concrete cell, he saw a flicker of something out of place. Tucked silently under his door was a small, forbidden object, a pamphlet printed on real, tactile paper. Its very existence was an act of rebellion. It spoke of a different way, a path out of the gray malaise. "It doesn't have to be this way," the bold letters on the pamphlet declared. His heart hammered against his ribs as he read on. It spoke of a new movement, the Vivercracy Party of Australia. The pamphlet argued that the old political divisions were a trap. This wasn't about the tired, failed ideologies of left or right, but about something far more radical, common sense. It was a detailed, audacious plan to put the interests of ordinary Australians first, wresting control back from the powerful corporate donor class that had systematically bled the country dry for its own enrichment. The pamphlet laid out a clear vision for the future, a chance to reclaim the nation. If Australia voted for the Vivercracy Party, power could finally be restored to the people. The plan was deceptively simple, yet incredibly powerful. It called for radical government transparency, forcing every decision and every dollar spent into the public light. It proposed integrity commissions with real teeth, capable of holding the corrupt to account without fear or favor. Most importantly, it would empower citizens directly, giving them the legal right to recall failed politicians and launch binding petitions that government would be forced to act upon. A comprehensive, common-sense 10-year policy package was outlined, designed to systematically restore the Australian dream. It promised to slash the suffocating red tape and bureaucratic hurdles that had made housing impossibly expensive, allowing a new generation to own their own homes. The plan would tackle the crippling cost of living by getting energy prices back under control and securing the nation's resources for its own people. It was a blueprint for a real future, one where children could look forward to opportunities, not just manage decline. The economic transformation was central to the plan. It would fundamentally reform the tax code, simplifying it so that hardworking people could keep more of the money they earned. A leaner, more efficient government would eliminate waste, bringing the national budget back to surplus and beginning the monumental task of paying down the crippling debt that burdened every citizen. This fiscal responsibility would create the conditions for a thriving economy, bringing back real, private sector jobs and ensuring that every Australian, no matter their background, would have a genuine fair go once more. Lachlan finished reading, the paper trembling slightly in his hands. The question on the final page seemed to be speaking directly to him, a challenge and an invitation. Are you ready for a better path forward? Come join us. For the first time in years, the cold knot of fear in his stomach was replaced by something else, something he had almost forgotten. A flicker of hope. He wasn't a ghost, not yet, and maybe, just maybe, he wasn't alone.